Right. All right, everybody. Thanks for sticking around. Welcome, Boardroom, Raging Bull members. Today, I'm really proud to introduce, we got Chad Harman with us. He's the CEO of Psycheceuticals. So try to practice that one. That's not an easy one to say out of the gate. Psycheceuticals. It's a great new company. I'm really proud to introduce them to you, and I'm really glad to have Chad with us today. So thanks for being here today, Chad.
Thanks for having me, Jeff. Welcome to your audience as well. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, this is a sector that a lot of people are, somewhat familiar with, but it's such an emerging sector right now. So we've talked about the psychedelic sector kind of emerging for the last few years. It's kind of gotten the radar of a lot of traders and investors, and it's just catching more and more momentum. So there's quite a few companies out there in this sector, and I'm really, really interested in talking to you about, where the sector is, what you're doing, where you see the growth coming from. So just your company in particular, and then the sector overall, because it's just exploding right now. We hear about it all the time. So really glad you're here with us today.
Thanks,
so
Jeff.
in a nutshell, why don't you just tell us what the company does, what you're doing, what your products are like right now, what you've got in developments, and then what the opportunity is.
Yeah, sure. Thanks again. We started the company off with really designing drugs with drug delivery technologies at the forefront of the company. So providing safer and more effective psychedelic medicines. We know that there's a lot of challenges related to delivering psychedelic medicine safely and effectively. So, psychogenic effects are, prevalent paranoia. Some of the gastric or GI irritability are some of the issues that we have in the industry. So when we were looking at really developing and starting Psycheceutical, our foundation was built off of a delivery technology to avoid a lot of those issues. Because as we looked at the sector, by way of background, I came from the insurance industry. So, once drugs do get approved, we also, want to look at the cost of care model and make sure it's a viable opportunity for any company in this space. So some of the challenge that I saw in the sector, and certainly with some of our competitors, is they were going to have to face some of those challenges. In 68% of the population in the United States, they don't want to have a psychedelic experience. So that's a big barrier to overcome. But secondly, you have to go into a clinic to be treated. There's significant costs surrounding that. There are physician costs, monitoring tools. So it can be very expensive. And on top of that, then you're going to spend hours in a clinical session getting treatment. So, cost and convenience are huge for Americans today and for many people, and really a lot of barriers. So, we designed the company with delivery technologies to avoid a lot of those. And our primary delivery technology is NeuroDirect, which is taking any neuroeffective compound in a topical cream, ointment, or gel, applied at the back of the neck, at the hairline, and within 8 to 10 minutes, patients will start to feel the effect. And it's been a very remarkable compound. It was created and invented by Dr. Ronald Ogden, a neuropsychiatric and neurologist out of Sarasota, Florida. He's been working on this technology for a better part of a decade. And the great news for us as a company and for our investors is the fact that Dr. Ogden has been treating patients with NeuroDirect, and that gets right into our first drug, which is the NeuroDirect ketamine for PTSD. PTSD really doesn't have any known therapeutics on the market today. There are two, but there are a lot of associated side effects with them. And many patients say that it doesn't really alleviate a lot of the concerns or symptomology from PTSD. And again, it goes back to where we're at from a therapeutic market perspective. The latest breakthroughs we've had were back in the 1980s with SSRI. So we haven't seen any tremendous progress. And now, with the advent of psychedelics, we're seeing new breakthrough. So with Dr. Ogden, he was able to prescribe the NeuroDirect technology to his patients in ketamine. And what he has seen so far is nothing short of remarkable, Jeff. He's treated well over 200 to 300 patients, I believe now, and he's seen a 80% response rate, which is remarkable in any feat with any therapeutic. And so, these patients have, severe PTSD. Many of them in many instances were traumatized as children or sexually abused, or veterans who came back from war, and obviously we know the statistics there in terms of suicidal ideation. And so to get those results for a program and for a company in the biotech space is really special and unique, that we were able to see anecdotal evidence to support our first drug development program, which is now into phase 1 in Australia. We've got data on our cohort 1, which is our first dose. It was very successful, and now we're heading into our cohort 2, which is our 50 milligram dose, and then we'll get right into our third dose, 100 milligrams, in late December, and anticipate to go into phase 2 clinical trials in Q3 of next year. So we feel like we have something very special with our delivery technology that really overcomes a lot of the challenges and stigma associated to psychedelic medicines.
And by the way, everybody, I'm over in the Market Masters room. If you guys have any questions for Chad or the industry in particular, just type them in there. I'm trying to monitor the comments, and I'll feed those over to Chad if I can. All right. You brought up Australia, which I think is interesting. Is there a lot of difference worldwide on the acceptance or the legality, or what's the temperature like out there?
Yeah, great question. And what we see today is Australia and other countries that really follow FDA guidelines. So you look at the Johnson & Johnsons, the Mercks, the Pfizers. They do a lot of their early phase 1 and phase 2 work in Australia for a multitude of reasons. Mainly, and for us as a small company, being mindful of how capital is deployed. Australia has a 43.5% government rebate program. So that was very advantageous for us. Also, with the CRO partner that we chose, they've got a sister company that invested 25% on top of the 43.5%. So for us, one, having a country that fully supports the FDA, and they're considered a sister company. So all data and relevant clinical trial information will be very appropriate and accepted by the FDA. Obviously, we have FDA regulatory guidance that we've sought, and so everything is done to FDA standards. And so, for us, very, very opportunistic for us to do those trials in Australia.
That's great. And what's it? So we're mainly treating PTSD. Is that the main thing you think that this is a treatment for at the moment? And do you think there's an expanded use out of it, or is that market big enough? Like it's the one you want to lean into for the long term here?
Yeah, it's again, going back to gleaming on Dr. Ogden's practice, where he was seeing many of his patients that have PTSD. There were no therapeutic benefits on the market. Many of them have tried so many of the SSRIs. And if you think about PTSD, a lot of the comorbidities that are associated with it are anxiety, depression, suicidal ideation. So, these are all, very huge markets, right? In the mental health space, for example, a global market, it's $400 billion. And as, the viewers here today and those watching later will attest to, we've got Ukraine war, we've got COVID, and we've got now, what's going on in the Middle East with Israel. These are, unprecedented times. So we're only increasing year over year in the number of patients suffering from PTSD and mental health conditions. So we chose PTSD because it was the clear line of path and we had data to support it. But we do fully expect, to your point, Jeff, to look at other depressive disorders, anxiety. And Dr. Ogden actually just was approved this month by Drug Delivery magazine, where he has shown an 88% response rate as it pertains to pain. So this is a very versatile drug that we've chosen. So, obviously not only mental health, but pain is another area. And again, think about the topical and think about opioid use disorder, right? Where we're taking Oxycontin and these other, very damaging and addictive drugs, where you can apply a topical cream at the back of the neck when you need it, where there's no systemic side effects, meaning it's not getting into your bloodstream or not hitting the opioid receptors, where there's no addictive potentiality. there's no nausea, there's no high. None of those effects are seen with our drug. So we feel like this particular drug right out the gate gave us a very versatile opportunity, but also too, going back to who can write prescriptions for these drugs, right? Going back to the neuropsychiatry, and psychedelic drugs in general, you're going to have to get these prescribed by a psychiatrist or a psychologist, which we have a lack thereof. And so with our drug, anybody can prescribe the drug. So a nurse practitioner, physician assistants, general physician, OBGYN, we're seeing a lot of other physicians start to prescribe SSRIs as a frontline defense. So we wanted to make it very versatile and make sure that everyone in the medical community or majority can prescribe these medicines.
So how does that get started in the U.S.? So do you have to go through typical FDA approval here, or is it kind of off the market? Is it something similar? What's the pipeline for you look like? How do you get there?
Yeah. So we've gotten FDA guidance on our clinical trial program for the neurodirect ketamine for PTSD. So we've gotten their clear guidance. So what'll end up happening is we'll get through phase 1 and probably wrap up by Q1 of next year, and then we'll go right into Q2 or Q3, and we'll start phase 2 trials. What we've done is, because we've got a lot of anecdotal observational data to support the program, what we're doing to fast track this through the FDA clinical trial pathway is we're doing a pivotal phase 2 trial. Now, for your readers or for those viewers on the call, you can do what's called a phase 2A and phase 2B. Phase 2A is kind of assessing where your dosage is going to be. But because we have the data and patient information from Dr. Ongden, we know what dosages work. So we're going right into a phase 2B pivotal trial so we can move as fast as we can into phase 3.
I think more stock traders probably have PTSD than we realize. It's a stressful game.
Yes.
We probably could benefit from this too, actually. You got a pretty good roster of investors. Notice you got Kevin Harrington on there. What's he doing with the company right now? I know he can be very influential when it comes to helping with marketing.
Yeah, I mean, he's been a wonderful advocate for the company, and from his perspective personally, he was drawn to our company because like most people, we know somebody, whether it be a friend or family member that's been afflicted by some type of mental health condition or a substance abuse disorder. Kevin's not an exception to that, and so it was near and dear to his heart. Tackling mental health conditions. And so on a personal level, he was very intrigued with the company, and the propensity of clinical results have shown, tremendous opportunities with psychedelics. But he really wants to get this out to the masses. So our technology was what drew him to the company, and which made him, join our company as an investor and an advisor. He is very integral in terms of our, PR, marketing, and our IR for the company. So I will say he is very engaged. Him and his team, they've been wonderful to work with, and he's given a lot of great guidance on his end. So
great. One of the questions we have is from Eddie here in the chat room. He says, "What other drugs are you being worked on at the moment?" So you mentioned addiction earlier. Mm-hmm. Just pulling up the pipeline on your website here too.
Yeah, so we've got working through our next pipeline drug on addiction. So substance abuse disorder is an area that we really don't have any therapeutic benefits. And if you go on to the U.S. government statistics, what most people don't realize, the total economic hit is about 700 billion per year, and that's billion, 700 billion per year in economic hit in terms of lost productivity, incarceration, and treatment involved with addiction. It's something we don't have a good grasp on therapeutic, any therapeutics in the market today. I always use the old adage, you beat the drum long enough and it falls on deaf ears if you don't have any solutions. And that's where the governments really struggle. We've talked to NIDA and governments all around the world, and they're saying, Chad, if you guys can come with a solution, we want to push those forward as quickly as we can. And so we found a molecule that has some great early research, and we're working on the IP pathway. Can't disclose that just yet, but we feel like we've got a very opportunistic time with our delivery technology to use for that particular psychedelic compound to break various addiction disorders, whether it be substance abuse, pornography, gambling, and we're also seeing potentially other areas beyond addiction that this compound shows remarkable results. So that's something in the works. We're working on the formulation and the IP right now. We are working on a clinical trial pathway. We're doing it overseas because there are, again, benefits to government rebate programs, but also, going back to another barrier that this industry has is the scheduling here in the United States is, a lot of these compounds are Schedule 1. Ketamine for us was a no-brainer. It's Schedule 3, but for many of these other compounds for psychedelics are Schedule 1. So it's a longer path to commercialization to get these rescheduled. And there's a lot of preclinical results that are very costly and expensive. So going with the addiction drug in our pipeline, we can do it overseas without doing these very expensive and extensive preclinical studies. Plus, we qualify for those rebates and programs. We've also identified some non-psychedelic compounds as well for neurodegenerative disorders. One of our chief medical officer is world-renowned neurosurgeon, Dr. Julian Bales, who was the subject matter of Concussion with Will Smith, and Alec Baldwin played him in the movie. He's been really an advocate for NFL players and Pop Warner football for many years, but he's been really on the forefront of cutting edge research as it relates to, delivering drugs across the blood-brain barrier into the targeted sites in the brain. So through his connections and our neuroscientist, Dr. Art Logston, we found some very unique molecules that have some great early results for traumatic brain injury, CTE, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, and dementia. And we're working on our third delivery technology that Dr. Bales has been working on in the past several years. So we've developed a very robust pipeline. Again, if you think about what we're doing as a company, we're setting it up as a platform drug delivery system designed to overcome the challenges of the blood-brain barrier. In NeuroDirect technology avoids the blood-brain barrier altogether, which is a huge market opportunity. And then we have another opportunity. We go direct injection in the brain. So again, very, very excited with the team we've assembled and the technologies and the very robust, what we feel is a high value drug development pipeline. And again, from our revenue model, for those interested, we're really looking at a dual revenue model system. So one where we're developing our own drugs, but more importantly, as we develop these drugs and prove them out, we're looking to really be that high value target where we start to work with all the big players in the neuro space. So, the Mercks, the Eli Lillys, the Neuralink with Elon Musk, right? So we want to be able to license out this technology and give, tremendous shareholder value through that.
Yeah. So the ultimate goal, do you see this more as a licensing play ultimately? Like you want to work with some of the bigger pharmaceutical companies when it becomes more mainstream?
Absolutely, because that's where you're going to see the biggest valuation, and for shareholders that get in early, right? You're getting in on the ground floor opportunity where if you look at companies like, Biogen and Eli Lilly, Merck, I mean, these are multi-billion dollar companies. And if we can provide a solution to these areas, I mean, you do the math on what the market opportunity is. It's tremendous.
Yeah. Speaking of opportunity, let's talk about that real quick. So you just launched what's called a Reg CF offering. It's not a Reg A, it's a Reg CF offering. It's an early stage offering. And it's really unique because number one, you guys are a public company right now. A ticker symbol is BWVI, right? So you guys are already trading publicly under that ticker symbol. And you also have a Reg CF offering at this time where investors can buy shares at a discount to the current, well, they can buy a set price. Right now, it happens to be a discount to the share price. So can you explain that a little more so we understand it?
Sure. Yeah, we really launched the Reg CF with the thought in mind. You'd be amazed, Jeff, how many inquiries we get on our website. Not only patients or individuals inquiring about our technologies and wanting to know, hey, when is your drug going to be available? But they also say, hey, how can I invest in the company and get involved? And so, interestingly enough, the psychedelic community is vast and is growing by the day. And so there's this huge, tremendous following. And we've heard from the community based on multiple outlets that, hey, we want to get involved, but we're not accredited investors. How can you make that happen? So for us, it was a logical choice to do a Reg CF. So it gives the average individual from friends and family that are not accredited investors the ability to invest in an early stage company, and gives them that ability to do that. So that was one. The other is, as we are looking at, long-term opportunity for Psycheceutical and its shareholders, certainly we have our eye on uplisting to a major national exchange. And as part of that, you've got to meet, certain requirements. And some of those requirements, right, are the number of shareholders. So we want a very broad-based shareholder, and we want as many eyeballs as we can looking at the company and talking about it. So this was, a perfect opportunity for us to do that through the Reg CF. So, very excited about the outreach that we've already seen early on, and the opportunity to reach more eyeballs as well.
Yeah. Yeah, again, this is one of those opportunities that it's really early stage. There's a big future ahead of it. I go back and I think about when we first saw some of the early cannabis stocks get listed, and people think, oh, what's going on? This will never be legal. This will never be a thing. And slowly over the last decade, you've seen, cannabis and marijuana legalized in, many states. I don't know if it's more of a majority or not, but a lot. So it's become pretty mainstream nowadays, and it probably will be in all 50 states in the next few years, I imagine. So we never would have thought that a decade ago. And I think, psychoceuticals is like the same thing. It's like we're very early on here, and psychedelic drugs overall, we all think about these things like when you maybe first got introduced, someone at high school had a bag of mushrooms or something. That's what you think about early on. But the industry has progressed so far from what it used to be, and it's a really valid drug nowadays, and it's going to become accepted. I'm very confident it's going to become accepted all over the country and the world. So companies like this that are early on in developing drugs that have got novel, real niche opportunities to treat real problems that they're like you said, there's not real drugs that treat treat depression or PTSD and addiction. We have some like band-aids we put on them right now, but nothing really treats them. So companies like this that are developing drugs that have a huge future ahead of them are just, it's a great opportunity. You have to think about what the opportunity looks like in the future. So I think it's really worth looking at right now. Think about what you consider the opportunity to be in the next few years. Do you think this is actually going to be a growing thing? If it's going to be overtaking cannabis in the next few years, and what's out there? But the opportunity is huge for us. And right now it's a really ground floor opportunity to get in on something that could have a huge potential on it. Right now they've got their Reg CF open. So I encourage you to take a look at that. They're going to drop a link in the chat room so you can take a look at their page on WeFunder, where they're raising money right now, and you can become a part of that. Looks like there's 12 days left in the early friends and family round. What's the discount there? What's that like, Chad?
Yeah, we've set it up on the early bird special to a 25% discount to the market, so people can get in and get that discount. And what I would say is that as we really move forward and press forward for this 2024 year, the growth we expect to see some tremendous valuation milestones occur for Psycheceutical. One is, as you look at the biotech market, you want to look at IP and assets and what you think would be, a very valuable market opportunity in the areas that they're going after. Obviously, mental health is huge. Neurodegenerative is huge. You also look at, the technologies, the drug delivery, can it be used for other companies? but you also look at where they're at in the drug development pipeline. And what I would say to early investors is, we started this a couple of years ago, and to be in a place where we're just about to go into phase 2 human trials is a pretty monumental feat for any company. And I would say that's a testament to the company and the strategy we've put forward. So those value inflection points happen at, once you file your IND, you get your phase 1 data, phase 2, and certainly phase 3. Those are all big value inflection points. And so next year, we expect to have 2 programs in human trials. We also are going to be developing and applying for our 3rd drug delivery technology. So we feel like this is certainly a ground floor opportunity, and the valuation is only going to grow tremendously from here.
I mean, I've seen some endorsements. People like Elon Musk, of all things, talks about using ketamine. It's becoming more and more mainstream. You see a lot of celebrities talk about it. And there's also a few other companies that are publicly traded right now in this space. What separates you from what they're doing? Is there patents, or is it the way the drugs you're using in particular? What separates you guys?
Sure. Yeah. So the separation really happens at the technology they were employing, right? Specifically NeuroDirect, where we've got a multi-layered protection, right? So the patent allows us to have a complete, what they consider there's prior art history. So nobody in the space can apply any topical cream, ointment, or gel or a patch at the back of the neck, at the hairline, or basically the ear to ear. So if anybody tries to use that area, they'll get blocked. Okay, so that's one way of protection. And what I will say is that when Dr. Ogden and his lawyer went to the USPTO, they asked him to show proof positive that there's no other areas that he was seeing the response rates he was getting when applied at the back of the neck, the hairline. And sure enough, there was no other area on the body when applied had the same neuroeffectiveness. So then we've got, with our drugs, then we patented our formulations, because again, remember, the remarkable results come from not going into the bloodstream. So we avoid all the systemic side effects, right? Mm-hmm. So it only goes down to the free nerve endings. And so that's where all the magic happens for this product. So we've got a multi-layered protection. And again, if we think about all the other companies in the space, you're going to have a psychedelic experience. And so again, it's going to remove the opportunity to address adolescents, to a senior population, those with an underlying medical condition, and so, or those who are just opposed again to having a psychedelic experience. So those are all tremendous barriers. And then certainly the cost aspect, right? So you're having to pay for the drug itself and the clinic and everything involved. Here for us, it can be prescribed by many physicians out there, and it really empowers the user to get relief. And what I would say too, Jeff, to that, what Dr. Ogden has seen with the drug is, and this becomes an ethical situation with the doctors, we have not seen any drug interactions with Dr. Ogden's data. So meaning these patients are on other SSRIs or other drugs. And so what we fully anticipate is being able to have these patients apply the NeuroDirect ketamine, get the relief they need, and then start to wean them off all the other drugs. As you know, many of these drugs have severe liver toxicity associated to them, suicidal ideation, loss of libido, right? So there's a lot of issues, and so we can do that in a very ethical and a meaningful manner to these patients. So here we have an opportunity to avoid all the other issues that our competitors have and treat the patient in an ethical manner.
Yeah. I had one more question before we head out here. It was asking about enrolling in one of the studies. Is there a way that they can volunteer for that, or does it have to, how does it happen?
Yeah, that's a great question. What I would say is, if you want to go ahead and email us the information, and as soon as that becomes available, we will certainly let you know when and where that will be available, and we'll put you on the list. Thanks for asking.
And one more question. Amy was asking about Parkinson's. She has a relative who's got Parkinson's. Is Is this something that would be an effective solution there, do you think, or is it, are they connected?
Yeah, great. We've seen a couple of different psychedelic compounds have some early stage great results to show that they're able to reduce a lot of the symptomology, in terms of a lot of the speech impediments, the motor cortex issues, and so there are studies out there that are starting to show tremendous results. As mentioned, one of the compounds that we're working with shows some early signs and results, and certainly we are exploring those opportunities. So we've actually got a couple of opportunities we're exploring on both the psychedelic and the non-psychedelic side as well. So attacking it from multiple angles. So it's something certainly near and dear to our heart.
Yeah. That's great. All right, we went a little bit long today, but thank you guys for sticking around with us. I appreciate your time. Chad, I appreciate you too. Thanks. I know your time's really valuable here. Again, there's two things I want you to take a look at before we go. Number one, there's the link to the WeFunder page where you can take a look at the investor offering. Now, you don't have to be an accredited investor for this. This is a early bird offering, so you get an extra discount for the next 12 days and 19 hours, it looks like. So take advantage of that while you can. It's a really interesting opportunity right here. I think the potential is really big ahead of us. And then on top of that, you can go and look at the stock itself. The stock is BWVI, traded in the OTC. You can go trade it right now. Like if you actually like the company, you decide you want to be an investor, you can trade it, you can own it as long as you want. It's actually a trading company, which also makes it interesting when it comes to the investment side, because a lot of times we talk about companies that are in what we call a Reg A or Reg A plus, where they're raising money, they're a private company. So while it's a great company, you don't really know what the exit strategy is ever going to be like. Well, when you come into a deal like this, it's already public. So hopefully the stock does get uplisted one day, like Chad was mentioning. Maybe it gets bought out, everything goes well. Maybe they do a partnership and they get bought out by a large pharmaceutical company. Who knows? But at least they're already public. So as you buy shares at a discount, it's already a public company. So you've got some liquidity options available to you already. So take a look at it. Look at the CF offering. Look at the public stock that's already out there. Two great opportunities for you guys to consider right now. Again, Chad, thanks for being here today. I appreciate you and everybody with Boardroom. Thanks for sticking around.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thanks, everybody. We'll talk to you later. Have a good afternoon.